A couple of years ago, my friend Sarah visited Japan for the first time. She was traveling solo and decided to venture beyond the usual tourist spots to explore some of the more remote and traditional areas. One of her stops was a small mountain village near Nagano, known for its stunning nature and old wooden houses. She booked a stay at a ryokan, a traditional Japanese inn that had been operating for over 100 years. When Sarah arrived, she was greeted by an elderly woman who ran the ryokan with her son. The place was charming but eerily quiet. She was the only guest that night. The woman explained with a warm but slightly hesitant smile that the inn didn't get many visitors these days. The son, a man in his late 40s, barely spoke and avoided making eye contact, which added to the strange atmosphere. That evening, Sarah decided to take a short walk to enjoy the crisp mountain air. The village streets were dimly lit by old lanterns, and the silence was almost oppressive. As she wandered, she noticed something odd. Many of the houses seemed abandoned, their windows dark and broken. A cold breeze blew through the empty streets, and Sarah felt an inexplicable unease. She turned back to the ryokan. Later that night, Sarah lay in her futon, trying to fall asleep. The room was lit only by the faint glow of a paper lantern, and the old wooden walls creaked with the wind. As she started to drift off, she heard a faint sound, almost like whispering. At first she thought it was the wind, but it grew louder, more distinct. It sounded like a woman's voice, softly chanting or humming. She sat up, her heart pounding, and listened closely. The sound seemed to be coming from the hallway outside her room. Gathering her courage, Sarah slid open the shoji door just a crack to peek out. The hallway was empty, dimly lit by the same faint lanterns. She told herself it must be her imagination, and went back to bed. But the sound didn't stop. In fact, it grew closer, as if someone were pacing slowly outside her door, chanting in that same soft, eerie tone. This time, Sarah froze in her futon, paralyzed with fear. After what felt like an eternity, the sound stopped abruptly. She waited, her breath shallow, straining to hear any movement. The silence was deafening. The next morning, Sarah packed her things and went to check out. The elderly woman noticed her pale face and asked if she had slept well. Sarah hesitated, then mentioned the strange sound she'd heard during the night. The woman's expression darkened, and for a moment she seemed reluctant to answer. Finally she said, "You're not the first to say that. This ryokan has a long history. They say that a woman, a guest who stayed here many years ago, never truly left." Sarah didn't ask for more details. She left the ryokan as quickly as she could and never looked back. To this day, she says she can still hear that faint chanting in her nightmares.